24 hours. That's all Lily asks for a day to know how a mama's hand feels in winter. Victoria Sinclair has closed billion-dollar quarters, but she has never faced a deadline like this: give a stranger's child warmth without breaking the father who's guarded her alone. Hank Dawson keeps his distance steady as snowfall, while the city counts down to Christmas. Before midnight, one decision will decide three futures. Will a CEO risk the fortress she built to make room for a family that isn't hers yet? Will a father risk losing his place in the only world that matters, his daughter's heart? And will a little girl finally learn that for one day can become forever? The vendor laughed at how cold weather never stopped children from wanting sweets. Victoria Sinclair bent down. "What flavor do you like, sweetheart?" "Vanilla, Lily Clan," said voice shy. "With sprinkles, please." "Vanilla it is." Victoria Sinclair smiled, handing over a crisp bill before turning to Ching. "Lily Clan, again. So tell me something about you." Lily Clan's cheeks puffed out as she licked her cone. "Papa makes toys out of wood. He made me a rocking horse and a dragon." "A dragon?" Victoria Sinclair laughed, genuinely surprised. "Yep. It does not breathe fire, but it guards my bed." Lily Clan giggled. "And Papa tells me stories every night, but he's not good at princess stuff. He doesn't know how to do princess hair." Victoria Sinclair's laughter rose like a bell. "Well, maybe I could try someday. I've read a lot of fairy tales." "Really?" Lily Clan's eyes lit up. "Like Cinderella, Rapunzel. Even the little match girl." Victoria Sinclair nodded. "Victoria Sinclair, I love Match Girl." Lily Clan whispered, more solemn now. But she was cold. Victoria Sinclair paused. She looked down at the child and gently brushed snowflakes from her coat hood. "Then let's make today warm, okay?" Lily Clan nodded. They walked past market stalls filled with gingerbread and handmade scarves. Victoria Sinclair bought her a small snow globe, a tiny town that swirled with glitter when shaken. Lily Clan held it to her chest like treasure. Hank Dawson watched from the edge of the path, arms folded loosely, his breath forming soft clouds in the winter air when Lily Clan turned back to look for him. He smiled and gave her a quiet wave. She smiled in return before skipping back to Wuchong. Victoria Sinclair song. And just like that, the invisible thread between all three of them grew tighter. They took a selfie together in front of a large snowman. "Cham." Victoria Sinclair crouched to phone. Lily Clan's level cheek to cheek, and for a brief second she forgot the boardrooms, the charts, the years of silence, echoing through a penthouse high above the city. Then came the moment. In the heart of the park stood a giant Christmas tree glowing with thousands of golden lights, each bulb dancing like tiny stars. Victoria Sinclair knelt beside Lily Clan, helping her reach for a hanging ornament shaped like a bell. Lily Clan hesitated, then leaned in close and whispered, "You're warm like I always imagined Mama would be." The world went quiet. Victoria Sinclair froze, not from the cold, but from the weight of that single soft truth. Something deep inside her cracked open a place she had sealed long ago with resignation and grief. She had once dreamed of a child, She had imagined lullabies, messy kitchens, sleepy hugs at bedtime. But life and its cruel twists had told her she was not meant for that. And yet, here was this little girl, not hers, not planned, saying words she had longed to hear from no one in particular, and now from the one heart that seemed to matter most. Victoria Sinclair wrapped her arms around Lily Clan and held her close. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for letting me be your mama today." Behind them, Hank Dawson approached slowly, sensing the moment, but not disturbing it. He sat on the bench beside them, snow gently collecting on his sleeves. Victoria Sinclair turned her voice low and full. "You've raised a little angel." Hank Dawson gave a small smile, eyes on Lily Clan. "She raised me first." They sat in silence for a while, sipping hot cocoa from a nearby vendor. The cup warmed. Victoria Sinclair's hands, but it was the presence of the little girl on her lap and the quiet man beside her that warmed something far deeper. For the first time in years, Victoria Sinclair felt not powerful, not accomplished, but present and real. The bus hissed softly as it pulled into the snowy lane. Victoria Sinclair stood beside the small bench near the stop, her hands deep in her coat pockets, watching. Lily Clan hold Hank Dawson's hand tightly. "I had fun today." Lily Clan beamed, looking up at her. "You're the nicest mom I ever had, even if just for now." Victoria Sinclair smiled, her heart aching with a strange warmth. She crouched to Hamtu. Lily Clan soon and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Thank you for letting me be souls." As Hank Dawson prepared to step onto the bus with but Lily Clan, Victoria Sinclair hesitated. Her voice was quieter than usual, uncertain, almost shy. "Would it be okay if I saw her again?" Hank Dawson paused, glancing at Lily Clan, who was already tugging at his sleeve with pleading eyes. His face softened. "If it makes her smile, I'll never say no." 3 days later, they found themselves standing in front of a tall townhouse at the edge of the city, modern glass, framed far removed from the worn-down apartment. Hank Dawson and Pos Lily Clan called home. He adjusted his flannel collar awkwardly, shifting his weight, as Victoria Sinclair opened the door. "Come in," she said gently. "You're not guests. You're invited." The inside was pristine but not cold, soft lighting, wooden floors, a scent of cinnamon, and something warm in the oven. Lily Clan clapped her hands in delight. "It smells like cookies." Victoria Sinclair laughed and led her to the kitchen. "That's because we're making some." Hank Dawson stood at the threshold, unsure. Everything was too clean, too quiet, too different. But then he saw Lily Clan, her tiny hands inside a mixing bowl, flour dusting her nose, and his shoulders relaxed. Victoria Sinclair offered him coffee, not espresso or imported blends, just regular coffee in a plain mug. "I hope this is okay." He took it, nodding. "Perfect." Each visit became more natural. Victoria Sinclair never tried to impress, only to connect. She let Aunt Lily Clan decorate cookies, draw on her office whiteboard, and even climb into her lap during meetings over Zoom. And Hank Dawson, though still reserved, began to talk more about carpentry, about books, about the things he loved, before his world became solely about diapers and bills. One evening after, Lily Clanswell had fallen asleep on the couch, clutching a teddy bear. Victoria Sinclair had found in the attic. Hank Dawson stepped onto the balcony. The city lights blinked in the distance like faraway stars. Victoria Sinclair joined him, handing him a soft blanket. "She's a beautiful child," she said softly. "She's everything." Hank Dawson replied, eyes still on the horizon. They stood in silence for a while. Then, Victoria Sinclair turned, her voice unsure. "She's not your daughter, is she?" Hank Dawson didn't answer immediately. He looked down, the fingers tightening around the cup in his hands. "No, not by blood." Victoria Sinclair watched him carefully. He looked back at her, his voice steady but thick with meaning, but by every heartbeat, that sentence hung in the air between them like something sacred. Victoria Sinclair didn't speak. She didn't need to. She only reached out and gently touched his hand the first time. No words, just the quiet acknowledgement of a truth both of them had started to feel. They were not just visitors in each other's lives anymore. Something was changing. Something real. Snow had fallen thick that night. It was the kind that muffled every sound, blanketing the world in stillness. Hank Dawson had just come home from a late shift fixing a broken porch when he saw it, a small wicker basket sitting quietly at his doorstep. He froze. Inside was a baby Tiny wrapped in a frayed pink blanket, with a bear stitched onto the corner. She had no name tag, no letter, no sign of who had left her, only a single sheet of lined paper, the ink smudged slightly by snowflakes. "Please don't hate her." He stood there for minutes, unmoving, staring into the infant's eyes. They were wide open blue like frost and unblinking. Hank Dawson did not know how to hold a baby. He had never changed a diaper, never warmed a bottle. But something about that gaze, calm and haunting, made walking away impossible. He took her in. That night, and many after, were a blur of crying, pacing, Googling how to sterilize bottles at 3 a.m., and sleeping in chairs. He sold most of what little he had, left his full-time job at the hardware store, started picking up odd jobs, fixing gutters, patching walls, mowing lawns, just enough to pay rent and buy formula. But she never lacked love. Every night he read her fairy tales until she drifted off, holding his finger like it was the only anchor she had. When she cried, he hummed old songs he barely remembered. And when she took her first steps, he cried harder than she did when she fell. He named her Lily Clan. Not because it meant anything, just because it felt like hope. Sitting across from him now, Victoria Sinclair listened in silence. They were in her kitchen. Lily Clan, fast asleep upstairs. A quiet warmth from the stove made the room feel smaller, more intimate. Hank Dawson spoke plainly, as if sharing a memory with no need for embellishment. "I was scared out of my mind," he admitted, "but I couldn't leave her there. I just couldn't." Victoria Sinclair whispered, "Why didn't you call child services?" Hank Dawson smiled faintly, though his eyes didn't. "Because I wasn't her best option, just the only one who didn't walk away." The room went still. Victoria Sinclair stared at him, her mouth slightly parted but no words came. Her fingers curled around the edge of her cup. Then almost involuntarily she said, When I was 27, I thought I was going to be a mother. Hank Dawson looked up. She continued, her voice low, steady. I was in love, or I thought I was. He said he wanted a future. Said all the right things. She paused, swallowed. We heard the heartbeat at 12 weeks. I cried. I had never felt joy like that. But at week 16, I had a complication. Emergency room cold hands. And later a doctor with soft eyes told me it might be difficult, almost impossible, he said, to carry again. Hank Dawson said nothing. He only listened. Victoria Sinclair kept her gaze on the dark surface of her tea. He left. Said it was too much. Said I should focus on healing. She gave a short, humorless laugh. What he meant was he didn't want the weight of loving someone who could not give him a child. There was silence again, not uncomfortable, but deep, like two people finally showing their scars. I never really cried. Victoria Sinclair said, finally looking up. Because Victoria Sinclair doesn't cry. Not in boardrooms, not in hospitals, not even in the dark. Hank Dawson studied her. Her expression was composed, elegant, but her eyes were breaking open, she added quietly. It's not that I'm alone. It's that no one ever stays long enough to see the parts of me I try to hide. And there in that kitchen, surrounded by snow and the ticking of a distant clock, something shifted. He didn't reach for her hand, didn't say anything grand. He just looked at her with eyes that didn't pity, didn't question, only understood. And for the first time in a long, long while, Victoria Sinclair didn't feel like she had to be strong. She simply had to be. The days blurred gently into each other, and something in the household began to shift, not in grand gestures or spoken promises, but in the smallest of routines. Victoria Sinclair had started teaching Lily Clan to write. They used a chalkboard in the sunroom where light poured in every afternoon, and Lily Clan's giggles echoed off the glass walls. The little girl would hold the chalk with fierce concentration, tongue poking out slightly as she scrawled big, clumsy letters. Amy read aloud one day, her voice soft with wonder, "Mama." Lily Clan grinned. "That's you." Victoria Sinclair blinked, taken off guard. Then she smiled, though it trembled slightly. "Yes, I guess it is." Down the hall, Hank Dawson had heard the exchange. He did not interrupt. He simply leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a quiet storm of emotions passing through his gaze. Later that evening, while washing dishes, Hank Dawson watched as Lily Clan climbed onto Crown Victoria Sinclair and asked for a bedtime story. It was a routine that used to belong solely to him. He dried his hands slowly, heart heavier than he liked to admit. Victoria Sinclair was careful. She never overstepped. She always glanced toward Hank Dawson, seeking unspoken permission before holding Lily Clan's hand too long or kissing her forehead. But feelings did not ask for permission. She had fallen into a rhythm with Lily Clan, and without meaning to, she had fallen into a rhythm with Hank Dawson, too. He was nothing like the men from her world. No expensive cufflinks, no corporate arrogance, just a man who could build a swing from nothing, who remembered how to salsa. Lily Clan liked her oatmeal, who fixed a leaky faucet without making it a performance. And he was kind, quiet, but fiercely kind. Still, Victoria Sinclair could feel the weight of something unspoken growing heavier between them. It wasn't the A. The breaking point came on a cool Saturday afternoon. Victoria Sinclair had taken Femme Lily Clan out to the park while Hank Dawson stayed behind to finish repairing a shelf in the garage. They had laughed through a puppet show, shared ice cream, and picked daisies on a hillside near the duck pond. They were lying on the grass when Lily Clan suddenly turned her head and asked, "Mama." Victoria Sinclair turned, brushing a lock of blonde hair from the child's forehead. "Yes, sweetheart." Lily Clan's eyes were wide, honest. "If I already have Mama Sa Victoria, then do I still need Daddy?" Time stopped. Victoria Sinclair froze, every muscle locking into place. Her breath caught. Her heart thudded too loud in her chest. She opened her mouth, closed it. Finally, she managed. "You will always need your daddy. Lily Clan. He's your home." Lily Clan nodded, satisfied, and returned to plucking petals from a flower. But Victoria Sinclair could not shake the question. That night, she did not come in for dinner. She left a message saying something had come up. She needed space. Hank Dawson read it twice, then sat at the kitchen table long after Lily Clan had fallen asleep. Victoria Sinclair sat alone in her car, parked just a block from her apartment, hands gripping the steering wheel, eyes fixed on nothing. She had thought the hardest part of letting someone in would be fear, but it was not. It was guilt. What if the love she was beginning to feel for Lily Clan was a thief in disguise? What if every smile, every bedtime kiss was slowly stealing something from Hank Dawson? Something she had no right to take. And what if her feelings for Hank Dawson were not as one-sided as she had tried to believe? That thought scared her more than any boardroom failure ever had. She whispered into the silence, "I did not mean to take her from you," but the silence did not answer. It only asked one thing. What will you do with this love now that it is real? And for the first time in years, Victoria Sinclair did not have an answer. Victoria Sinclair had disappeared. Not in a dramatic, storming out sort of way. She simply stopped calling, stopped texting, no more visits, no more shared dinners or chalkboard lessons, just silence. Hank Dawson noticed it immediately. He did not ask questions. He did not speak of it to Lily Clan, who asked every day, "Is Mama Victoria coming over?" He would just smile gently, brush her hair back and say, "Maybe tomorrow." But the tomorrows stretched on, and so Hank Dawson poured himself into being everything Lily Clan needed. He cooked her favorite soups, read her 3 stories instead of one, carved her a new toy bunny from soft pine wood. He smiled wider, laughed louder. But at night, when she was asleep, he would sit alone at the kitchen table, hands folded tight, and wonder what he did wrong. Then came the storm. It started with a cough, just a light tickle in Tatung. Lily clamped to his chest. By bedtime, her forehead burned with fever. Hank Dawson stayed up with her all night, holding her little body against his chest, whispering lullabies, even as panic settled deep in his bones. By morning, her fever had worsened. Her lips were dry, her skin clammy. Outside, the snow fell hard, thick, and blinding. He bundled her up, wrapped her in every warm piece of clothing they owned, and carried her on foot through the icy wind to the nearest urgent care center. Inside, the waiting room was empty. A nurse took one look at Lily Clan and rushed them in. But after a dose of medication and hours of waiting, her fever barely budged. Hank Dawson sat beside the hospital bed, his hands shaking. Matu, Lily Clan whimpered in her sleep, her small face flushed and restless. His phone was in his hand before he even realized it. He hesitated, then pressed her name. It only rang once. 20 minutes later, Victoria Sinclair pushed open the hospital door, her coat still dusted with snow. She did not speak. She simply walked straight to Lily Clan's bedside and knelt. Hank Dawson looked up at her. He had not seen her in weeks, and still there she was. "Her fever won't go down," he said, voice barely audible. "I know," Victoria Sinclair replied. She took Lily Clan's tiny hand into her own and pressed a cool cloth to the girl's forehead. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart. Mama's here." Hank Dawson turned away for a moment, his chest tight. For the next few hours, they stayed there together. Victoria Sinclair refused to leave. Lily Clan sighed. She hummed lullabies. She whispered comfort. And when Lily Clan, finally calmed, drifting into a deeper, quieter sleep, her small body curled into Victoria Sinclair's lap, like it belonged there. Hank Dawson stood a few steps away, watching them. He had never seen Lily Clan look so peaceful, not since the day she was left on his doorstep. He stepped closer slowly, then sat beside them. Lily Clan's head rested against Victoria Sinclair's shoulder. Victoria Sinclair glanced up at him, and in that moment, the exhaustion in both their eyes faded. "I was afraid she'd love you more," Hank Dawson said quietly, his voice rough. Victoria Sinclair stared at him, her own breath catching. "But now," he continued, "I know. Maybe she needs us both." Victoria Sinclair reached for his hand. She did not need words. Her fingers said everything as they curled tightly around his. That night, in the soft hum of the hospital's quiet corridors, something healed between them. Not everything, not yet, but enough. And for the first time in weeks, neither of them felt alone. 1 year later, snow blanketed the small hilltop cottage in soft, glistening white. The air was crisp, the trees whispered in silence, and the chimney puffed a steady trail of smoke into the winter sky. It was nothing like Victoria Sinclair's former life in the glass penthouse towering above the city. A world of cold steel, gleaming surfaces, and polished solitude. That life had been defined by power, precision, and deadline. But this home, this little cabin of pine and warmth, was built on quiet joys. Its wooden beams held laughter in their grain. Its walls echoed bedtime stories, not boardroom commands. Windows fogged from simmering soup. The scent of cinnamon lingered in every room, and shelves overflowed with Lily Clan's drawings and handmade wooden toys. Inside, Victoria Sinclair hummed softly as she stirred a bubbling pot of stew. Her golden hair, once always perfectly coiffed, was now tied in a messy bun, with flour on her cheek and warmth in her eyes. Hank Dawson stood beside her at the kitchen counter, carefully carving the final details into a miniature rocking horse. It was for a little boy at the shelter, their newest initiative through the non-profit they founded together. Their hands moved in quiet rhythm, the kind shared by people who no longer needed words to understand each other. Their movements were simple, but their hearts beat with the same quiet certainty. Lily Clan, now 4 and bursting with imagination, dashed into the kitchen with glitter in her curls and paint on her cheeks, waving a crayon drawing in the air like it was a treasure map. "Mama, Papa, look what I made," she squealed. "It's our house with stars on the roof. That means it's magic." Victoria Sinclair knelt, catching her breath from laughter, and pulled Lily Clan soulstories close. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. And you know what? I think you're right. It is magic." Hank Dawson leaned in, brushing a speck of glitter off John Lily Clan's nose with a chuckle. "Definitely our best Christmas yet." They had called their foundation One More Day, a name born from a time when one day of kindness had rewritten the future for 3 strangers. Now it served dozens of single parents and children, giving them meals, toys, shelter, and most of all, hope. Because both Victoria Sinclair and Hank Dawson knew how far one small act could reach when given with love. Later that evening, after a simple dinner and stories by the crackling fireplace, Victoria Sinclair stepped outside to feel the snow on her skin. The night was still. Snowflakes drifted down like blessings. Behind her, the soft amber lights of the cottage cast a golden hue across the snow-covered ground. She inhaled the cold air, crisp with pine, and felt peace in her bones. Hank Dawson came out a moment later, wrapping a wool scarf around her shoulders with a quiet gentleness. "Still adjusting to country life?" he asked, his voice low, amused. Victoria Sinclair smiled, her eyes fixed on the starlit sky. "I've burned 5 loaves of bread, ruined a birdhouse, and managed to get glue stuck in my eyelashes, but I've never been happier." He smiled, then reached into the pocket of his coat. "I have something for you." She turned toward him, curious, then froze. He held out a small wooden box. It was handcrafted, smooth, and bore the faint scent of cherry wood. Inside, resting in dark velvet, was a ring carved from the same wood. There was no diamond, no gold, just a circle of care shaped by his hands and his heart. Victoria Sinclair saw his breath caught, her eyes lifted to meet his steady, kind, and full of quiet hope. Hank Dawson knelt on one knee in the snow. The cold did not matter. The moment was warm. "You're not the miracle I asked for," he said softly. "You're the miracle I didn't know I needed." His voice was roughened by emotion, his words simple but true. "Will you be my wife?" Victoria Sinclair dropped to her knees too, the snow soaking through her jeans. She wrapped her arms around his neck, laughing through tears. "Yes," she whispered, her voice shaking with joy. "Let's build this life. Not perfect, but ours." Inside the house, Lily Clan peeked through the frosted window, her eyes wide with wonder. When she saw them in the snow, she squealed, "Mama said yes." The house glowed brighter than ever that night, as if the love inside spilled out through every crack and corner. And outside, in the stillness of Christmas Eve, under a sky full of stars and snow, love carved its quiet miracle, gently, tenderly, forever. 1 year later, the town still shimmered under December's snow. But this time, Victoria Sinclair was not in a boardroom. She'd gracefully stepped down from her role as CEO, not in scandal or defeat, but in peace. The office lights still glowed downtown, but her heart now beat for something different. The heartbeat of a home, the laughter of a child, the warmth of love found in unlikely places. She and Hank Dawson now ran one more day full-time, a foundation that had grown roots in the community, providing aid for single parents and children, and reminding people that even one good day could change everything. Their home was a modest log cabin tucked near the forest's edge. No golden handles or marble counters, just creaking wooden floors, hand-carved furniture, and the smell of cinnamon and pine. Each corner told a story. Each scratch on the floor whispered of a life lived with meaning. Lily Clan had started preschool. Each morning she proudly marched in with her handmade backpack and told her teachers, "Mama reads me fairy tales every night, and Papa makes toys for my school." At pickup time, she ran into Victoria Sinclair's arms, shouting, "We made snowflake crowns today," before climbing into the old pickup truck that had somehow kept running for 10 years. There were no fancy vacations or private jets, but there were picnics in the woods, marshmallows over bonfires, and snow angels made while giggling until their cheeks hurt. There were quiet nights reading under blankets and noisy mornings with pancakes that never quite looked like circles. And then came the anniversary, Christmas Eve. The three of them returned to the park where it all began. The town square was lit up again, families bustling, music playing, children laughing. But this time they were no longer on the outside looking in. Victoria Sinclair wore her wool coat and a scarf. Lily Clan had designed with glitter glue. Hank Dawson held a thermos of hot cocoa steam curling into the sky. And between them, holding both their hands, was Lily Clan. Now taller still in a red coat, but with eyes that sparkled brighter than the Christmas lights. They walked slowly past the same bench where Victoria Sinclair once sat alone. Lily Clan tugged both their hands. "Can we spend every day together forever?" Hank Dawson looked at Victoria Sinclair. Victoria Sinclair looked at Monte. Hank Dawson. Their hands tightened around Lily Clan. "So forever and ever," they said in unison. Lily Clan stopped, threw her arms around their legs, and looked up with that old soul in her eyes. "I don't have Mama," she said, then smiled. "But now I have Mama, Victoria, and it's forever." Victoria Sinclair knelt, tears in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. Forever." They embraced as snow began to fall, soft, silent, and gentle as a promise kept. And in the quiet of the evening, with lights twinkling and music drifting in the distance, the family stood whole, complete. Not by blood, not by plan, but by choice. If this story touched your heart the way it touched ours, we invite you to keep the warmth alive. Every soul has a story, and every story has the power to heal, inspire, and bring light to someone's darkest hour. Subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more heartfelt tales that remind us of the strength in kindness, the magic in ordinary moments, and the love that finds us when we least expect it. Hit the like button if Lily Clan's wish made you tear up, and share this story with someone who still believes in second chances, found families, and Christmas miracles. I'm Elias Hope, because sometimes one simple question can change a lifetime. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story, music.